right, welcome back, fellow jazz bums. I'm very excited to make this video. This is something that I've been thinking about and making notes on for a very long time. So we're going to get into it in a second, but before we do, remember to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. We also have the Jazz Bums Discord, and I encourage all of you to join up. I'll drop an invite link in the description below. And then we also have the live stream every Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern on the channel, so come and hang out with us there as well. All right, so what I'm going to get into is what I'm calling the quote. And this is something that is just like a quote in any respect. It's a reference to another thing. So in this case, it's going to be another composition or another artist. And this quote I've seen come up at least a dozen times, so I want to play each of those for you. I am considering this research and commentary, so hopefully there aren't any issues with me playing this. And I think this will be really fun to explore with everybody. So the way that I found out about this is I stumbled upon a podcast about the song Moanin' performed by Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. So let's start there, the podcast. So this podcast is called Strong Songs, and it's by Kirk Hamilton. And this is from April 3, 2019, and he breaks down the song Moanin'. I'll drop a link to this podcast in the description. I highly recommend listening to it. It's very interesting to hear how he talks about the approach to this song and the framework that the musicians use. When he's talking about Lee Morgan's solo, he references that Lee Morgan is making a quote, and Kirk thinks that he's quoting Clifford Brown, which he very well may be, but there are other instances that this quote happens in. So it may be Clifford Brown, it also may be Dexter Gordon or Wardell Gray. So we'll get into those examples a little bit later, but he's definitely making a quote. So he plays the example, and then he plays the Clifford Brown example, which happened, I think, a couple years earlier. So I will play those for you. They're very short clips. I'll play the Lee Morgan one twice just so it helps settle in. And then I'll play the Clifford Brown one, and then we can start listening to the other ones. But this is a quote, and this is something that I found really cool. So this version here is the one that Lee Morgan does on Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, Moanin'. That's it. That's the quote. So let me just back it up. We'll listen to it one more time. Okay, so you got that. Now let's listen to Clifford Brown play that same lick on this album on the song Jordu. So that's Clifford Brown's version of it. So that's what the quote is. And ever since I heard this podcast, I started listening for this and making notes when I heard it. So I found about a dozen versions of this, and I just want to walk through them all with you because I think it's just really fun. And it's really been kind of a fun thing to listen for as I'm just kind of exploring the genre. So the earliest recording that I've come across is this. So this is the Chase and the Steeplechase. This is Wardell Gray and Dexter Gordon. This is a really cool record. It came out originally on 10-inch in 1952. It's a concert in LA. And I'm not sure if it's Dexter Gordon or Wardell Gray, but I actually think it's Wardell Gray, but I'm not totally sure because they're both playing tenor. But here, this is the quote at this concert in 1952. Did you hear it? Now, there is crowd shouting, so let me back it up. We'll listen to it one more time. Did you hear it? So they're quoting it. This is 1952. This is the earliest recorded version I could find of it, and it's on the Chase on Decca Records. So let's keep moving forward. So the next one we've already heard. I'll play it again. This is the Jordu one. We'll just have a quick reference point here. So that's the Clifford Brown one. Now, on the same album, on Parisian Thoroughfare, Clifford Brown quotes it again. So this is the Parisian Thoroughfare one, and it has like a different kind of style to it. So that one, there's like a little bit more bounce to it. So he quotes it twice on the same album on different tracks. All right, let's keep moving forward. Oh, and also, so this version is 1954. So we had the Dexter Wardell Gray, 52. This is 54. The next one is going to be Horace Silver. This is 1956. On this album, which is a quintet record, I believe this is a trio song on the record. and Horace Silver plays it on piano. So let's listen to Horace Silver do that. All right, did you hear that? So very different style, very different flow and delivery. Let's hear it one more time. See if I can back it up. All right, let me try one more time. All right, so that's Horace Silver playing it. Let's keep moving. So that's 1956. 1957, we have another Blue Note artist, Hank Mobley, on the album 1560. And he plays it on tenor sax. So let's hear him. So very fiery and straight ahead, right? So just fantastic. I just absolutely love it. Let's hear it one more time. All right, so that's Hank Mobley doing the quote. So everybody's doing the quote. So we got Dexter, Wardell Gray, Horace Silver, Clifford Brown, Hank Mobley. The next one up is a Coleman Hawkins record. Now, Coleman Hawkins doesn't do the quote on this. His piano player, Hank Jones, does the quote. So let's hear Hank Jones' version on piano. All right, did you hear it? Okay, let's hear it one more time. So that's got some swing to it. That's a swing version. All right. And this is 1957. So we're in 57. The next one here. Now this one is debatable. This is Ray Draper Quintet Tuba Sounds with Jackie McLean on alto. And I think Jackie McLean is making a reference to this, but let me know what you think. So it's not as clear, but I wanted to include it just in case. Let me know what you think about that one in the description below. All right, let's keep moving forward. So this is MJT. This is on Argo. This is an early Argo, Daddio Presents. And this is a great session with Bob Cranshaw, Walter Perkins, and Nikki Hill on tenor, who does the quote. And this is still 1957. You got it? So he's on tenor and he does the quote there. All right, so we have four more, and let's keep going. So this is going to be the one we've already heard, the first one we heard. I think it's actually interesting to hear Lee Morgan's interpretation of it after hearing all those that we just heard, because it kind of shows how the style of Lee Morgan, how different it was, because his just has like a little bit more attitude. So let's listen to Lee Morgan one more time. So there's Lee Morgan again. And this is 1958, right? Yeah, so 1958. Okay, we also have Lee Morgan on this session. This is Benny Golson and the Philadelphians on United Artists. This is also 1958, and Lee Morgan again does it on this. So let's hear Lee Morgan's interpretation with Benny Golson as leader. Did you hear that? Let's hear it one more time. A little drum solo intro. So that's him doing it again. So this is part of Lee Morgan's repertoire. Like he's using it in multiple sessions. And yeah, so anyway, so that is Lee Morgan on the Philadelphians. Two more. Now we have another Lee Morgan record. However, it's not Lee Morgan who does the quote on this. It's Bobby Timmons. What's interesting is Bobby Timmons wrote that song Moanin'. He's the person who composed it. So Bobby's very familiar with with what Lee Morgan did with it back on the Art Blakey album. So now Bobby Timmons is going to make a quote of Lee Morgan, who's playing it on a Bobby Timmons track, a couple years earlier. So here we go. All right, did you hear it? Let's back it up here one more time. You got it? All right, so Bobby Timmons on piano. All right, and then finally, we have our first flute entry by Roland Kirk. This is 1964 on Limelight. This one is probably the most unique of them all. It sounds beautiful and it swings, so let's hear Roland Kirk do it. You got it? So we got a flute. All right, so those are the instances where I was able to identify those, and it was really fun to do that. Now, what is the origin of this? Where did this little melody lick come out of? So the podcast, Kirk Hamilton on Strong Songs, revisits it. So let's go back to the podcast. I'll drop this in the description below. I'll also drop all these songs and the timestamps around when these quotes happen, just for reference. And actually, if I hear any more going forward, I'll come back and I'll revise the description to include those, and that's just where I'll keep it. But it is a fun quote to kind of keep track of because it's used so much on so many great records. Okay, so Strong Song. So a jazz mystery solved. So he goes into the story of exactly how he was able to kind of figure out where he thinks that the origin of this melody is. And it's through him and his friend figuring, going in, doing it, and figuring it out. So anyway, what it turns out to be, which I absolutely love, is that this is a 1939 composition by Jimmy Van Heusen. And why I love it is because it was famously covered in 1940 by Tommy Dorsey and none other than Frank Sinatra. So I'm going to play the Tommy Dorsey version of it. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Tommy Dorsey Band with Frank Sinatra, Tommy plays trombone, and he usually takes like the first half of the song to solo the melody, and then Frank comes in later, and he's much more involved, and in the mix, rather than like having his kind of front and center like tone. So I'll play what Tommy Dorsey plays, and it's going to sound very different than what we've heard in terms of tempo. So it's going to be much slower than what we used, and all these jazz musicians really sped it up. But this is the same melody, and here it is. It came out in 78 and 1940, and this is what it originally sounded like. That's it. I'll let me play it one more time. Let me back it up. Here we go. That's it. So that is what Dexter and Wardell Gray were quoting, and that is where that lick originated. So this has been really fun for me to make this video. I've been thinking about it for a while, as I mentioned. So if you hear anything that reminds you of the quote, please, let me know. Or if you know of any other quotes that are fun to listen for within jazz, let me know. This was pretty fun to do. So thank you very much, and I'll see you guys next time.